Welcome to WAY2B TV, where there's a better way to be than atheist or theist. Last week we talked about what the ancient writer proposed the ancient speaker named Jesus had to say about how we should focus our mind's eye. Where is our treasure? What's important to us? What is it we're working on? And so in the video this evening, we're continuing to consider how resistance to being in the way plays itself out in life. This week, the ancient writer has the ancient speaker talking about the worry and anxiety we feel while adopting the way. So here's tonight's video. Modern Christian theists build up a superhero named Jesus. Modern atheists tear down a clueless preacher, also named Jesus. Both atheists and theists use literal interpretations of the modern Bible. But Jesus was neither superhero nor clueless preacher. In this video, we are looking at what the ancient writer depicted the ancient speaker to have said about anxiety. The ancient writer has Jesus saying for this reason, referring back to the inward treasure addressed in the few sentences that precede it. The writer has the speaker continuing with a choice between quietly serving an inward journey and serving a well-dressed, well-fed, lucrative reputation in society. He addresses why his listeners lose their bearing, what persuades them to strive toward being seen and heard. So the writer has the speaker advising not to be anxious about life. That's all, nothing more. The Bible is full of this sort of teaching. Just believe and be tangibly blessed. For the sake of an outward religious reputation, religion has taught for millenniums spiritual pride, who are you better than? Abundance from supernatural belief, holy righteousness, defending the faith even with a fist raised, holy laughter at clueless unbelievers, and the segregation of relationships based on who believes what. Considering the speaker's opening principles, expressed less than 10 minutes earlier, one might consider, I need not worry that by laying aside my pride, others will see me as spiritually bankrupt. By mourning my own condition, others will see me as flawed. By giving gentleness in relationships, others see me as weak. By admitting to my own struggle to know what is right, I admit others may be right after all. By not responding in kind, I become vulnerable. By pure motives toward others, I will lose my advantage. By making peace between my friends, they might leave me out. Followers of the way have natural hope. They have goals and dreams like everyone else. Neither atheist nor theist seems to understand this. The theist sees supernatural provision. The atheist sees Jesus as teaching others to give up on life. In less than 10 minutes of a contiguous line of thought, it seems more likely the ancient speaker taught an inward journey that yields contentment while taking life as it comes in community with others. Was Jesus teaching us to be these passive people? What was Jesus? Was Jesus the chief flower child of all the millenniums, or what was he?
I don't think he intended for us to float through life tiptoeing through the tulips. I think we're supposed to tend our own knitting and leave everybody else alone as far as that goes, and work to provide for yourself, and it'll all come around to greet you.
Right.
Well, but Jesus is, if it's true about Jesus at the temple, I don't think he was sitting back and being a pacifist. No, he was out there trying to change things.
I think the writer definitely did not. The writers of the Gospels definitely did not paint him as a pacifist?
That's a tough one. I can see where both sides would have something to say about it and how they could make logic out of it. It's whatever you're at peace with.
Also, Jesus was teaching people how to live better lives. He wasn't just sitting back, you know, going through life expecting everything to be handed to him. He was
Right.
involved with the community. He was involved with his people, and there was a lot of love there and a lot of very important communication.
Modern day churches, especially, are more like going to some kind of entertainment mall. And I enjoy going. Quite frankly, I enjoy all of that stuff. But the fact of the matter is, what he was saying was, that's not what life is about. That life is not about trying to be seen and heard as righteous, seen and heard as holy.
Just got through saying it. It's not about putting on a show. It's not about
Right.
being fake. It's about being real. It's about being genuine.
Jesus showed this by defying the temple and Rome to teach the people. Right. And he got in trouble for it and they killed him. I can't help but remind y'all one more time, though. What we know is what the ancient writers wrote about the scuttlebutt that was going around related to a half-century old legend about a man who lived long time ago, okay, in their day.
Yeah.
Of course, even longer now. And so you always got to be careful with this stuff. You don't want to say that, hey, let me just tell you all about Jesus. But by no means do I want anyone to ever think that I think I know exactly what Jesus said, or exactly who Jesus was, or exactly how he expressed himself, or which of those phrases that are in the various Gospels are authentic and which one of them are not.
He says he was neither a militant nor a pacifist, somewhere in between.
And it's about the special coffee and donuts that you're going to get for free the first Sunday you attend, and all that kind of stuff, and a free breakfast on Saturday morning or whatever. It's gotten to where it's every bit about marketing.
But I don't think, this is Jan, I don't think Jesus was complacent and wanted us to be complacent in just accepting that, well, we'll be taken care of if we don't do anything. So I do think we do have a responsibility to be preparing for the future, but yet at the same time not worrying about it.
I don't think he was a pacifist either. Yeah, Joni, go ahead and read what Colleen said.
My personal Jesus was a quiet man who became a teacher, trying to show the people that heaven was in them if they only were content in their own lives.
There's 70% people who identify with the Christian religion in one way or the other. And so, and especially when you get to the religious right, you have millions of people who believe they know what is right, and their congressmen and their governors and their legislators are pushing those things on the rest of the population. So anyway, it comes down to this, is can the religious right understand that they live in a country where the population at large does not necessarily agree with every position that they take? Go ahead, John.
Even the people who aren't religious think that religious people have the best outlook for ruling the country because they think that religion is, holy, for the most part, is a good deal. Even if they're not religious themselves. That's how it gets to be that the people who are not religious will vote for someone who labels themselves as religious.
Church propaganda.
Colleen says, I agree, Elise, that what I've read of different religions, each teacher in all religions taught self-worth, being content, not joining a group to pray.
Right, or to act out some kind of righteousness or whatever. But anyway, back to what we were talking about religion and its effect over the school system. I'm going to read you a little short piece of an article I was reading this week. It said the inclusion of Moses in a proposed high school government textbook was among the issues that prompted lively debate Tuesday over the role of religion in the state's public school classrooms. I think they'll believe that Moses was the first American, said Catherine Wellman, a history professor at Southern Methodist University. This embodies the wrong-headed idea that the United States was founded on biblical law. Wellman was one of the many of nearly 50 people who spoke before the State Board of Education Tuesday on the proposed social studies textbooks. The standards have come under fire for including requirements like the one mandating that high schoolers learn how Moses, British philosopher John Locke, and French philosopher Charles de Montesquieu informed the American founding documents. Multiple speakers pointed to proposed textbooks they said painted Muslims and Native Americans as violent, while glossing over violence in Christian history. Amy Jo Carter disagreed with those who criticized Christian references. Baker said the books didn't focus enough on the country's Judeo-Christian beginnings. Gillen from Garland agreed with Baker. Americans do not need or sanction this change. She added, evolution is a theory and cannot be considered a fact. Our children have a right to know they did not necessarily evolve from a bug. Okay, so, and that's kind of the way that debate has been going now for years. You cannot then turn around and make the supernatural elements themselves and the influence of them on the world what we teach our kids in a science class, a history class, a biology class, a social studies class, openly in the classroom, where creation is taught as an alternative theory to evolution, and evolution is taught as an alternative theory to creation. Theory is the highest form of knowledge within science. It represents the state of science. It stood up to peer review. It stood up to the process of falsification, that is, trying to falsify it, and it has to be falsifiable. Now, you can't take the story of Moses, which is now being weaved into history books in a school classroom. Think about this now. Moses, you can't prove Moses existed, much less the supernatural deeds that went on around him, and the 10 Commandments that came down off a mountain are supposedly the basis for our laws. Moses is becoming part of curriculum. Think about it. It makes no sense. Read the chats, Joni.
Colleen, we only got one. But many of the new history books are eliminating things that I learned that happened. They're being written out of new books.
Darwin was the beginning of the study of evolution. Evolution today is an entirely different and far-reaching and more complicated science than Darwin ever imagined. What's Colleen saying there?
When I was teaching in CCD classes, there was a new book teaching a more accurate accounting of religion, Jesus, etc. My parish flat out refused to let me purchase them for my classes.
I just don't see how they can take no proof behind it and call it history. I mean, they can call it religion, and that's fine. That's believed in the religion. But how can you call, like, the tale of Moses as history? We don't have no proof that it ever happened.
Now, that article right there was about a year old. There are more articles like the one that I read just now, but there are more articles like it that you can get that are being published right now every week through Newsweek or the Houston Chronicle or Reuters or Slate or somebody. That's a shame, because I have no issue with kids learning religion, and I have no issue with families being religious. Mine was very religious. And so was yours, Joni. But I have no issue with that at all. But I do have an issue with, I want my kids to learn math and science, and physics and chemistry, and the truth about how science developed in this country, and about how biology works, and what we've learned, and what we know about the universe, and how stars are formed, and whatever it is. I want them to learn the current best information related to that. And the reason for that is religion is something that just makes edicts. They make proclamations. This is so, this is so, this is so, this is so. In science, what they do, and I know enough about this because I practiced an applied science called engineering for a long time, but in science, it's never that. Nothing is an edict. Nothing is a proclamation. The current state of the science is, and it can be proven wrong someday. You know, they don't become the flat Earth society, and that's the end of science. But instead, it's always evolving, and always changing, and always learning something new. And boy, we sure thought this was the greatest principle ever, or the greatest idea ever, or the greatest explanation ever. But then 20, 30 years down the road, we go, well, that wasn't it so much. We're going to have to change that considerably from what we've learned since then. And science has no issue with that. They don't feel any embarrassment from it or anything else. That's the purpose of science. But that is not the purpose of religion. Your kids' narrow-mindedness, you want to teach them open-mindedness. You don't want to teach them what to think. You want to teach them how to think.
Colleen says she remembers arguments for and against creationism, and those wanting it stated that evolving from apes was appalling. That is what I meant about things, events in history being rewritten or eliminated altogether in new history books, when a religious group has control of what will be learned in school by children.
Well, I understand being tenacious if you think you're
They don't
right
want to know everything.
and all that, but we've got a struggle in this country. We used to be the model of education, and now we're not even one of the noted participants in education. So here come the credits, y'all.
Thanks, guys.
See you later. Bye. Wave bye, Carol. Bye.
Bye.